Formula One is considered the pinnacle of motorsport due to the speed, precision, latest technology, and wealth associated with this racing category. Every team competing in the Formula One Championship always comes with innovative solutions and approaches to maximize their race results. However, some of them have led to bigger controversies in the history of the championship. Welcome back to DailyGrid. In this video, we'll dive into the most infamous Formula One scandals and explore how they helped to shape the sport to the level that we see today. Spygate scandal of 2007. The 2007 Spygate scandal is considered one of the biggest scandals in Formula One history, resulting in heavy sanctions on the McLaren F1 team. Actually, McLaren drivers were enjoying a great season when some confidential documents related to Ferrari's development process were found. After the investigations, it was found that McLaren engineer Mike Coughlin made a deal with Ferrari chief mechanic Nigel Stepney to hand over a 780-page document which contained some key information related to the Ferrari Challenger. Coughlin's wife went to a local photocopy shop to make a copy of that document, and the employee in the shop became suspicious about it. He was a Ferrari fan and immediately reported the incident to Ferrari headquarters in Maranello. After the report, Ferrari team management carried out an internal investigation and found that some of their most confidential information was already leaked to their rivals. Ferrari then opened a formal case against McLaren with some strong evidence. However, the case was dropped when Coughlin agreed to reveal all the things that he knew about Ferrari's development process. Anyhow, a second case was once again opened, and that resulted in heavy fines on the Woking-based team. The team was excluded from the 2007 Constructors' Championship, despite being a title contender. On top of that, the Woking-based team had a $100 million fine imposed against them, which stood as the biggest fine in F1 history for a long time. This Spygate scandal badly affected the financial status as well as the reputation of McLaren. The Crashgate controversy of 2008. 1 year after the Spygate scandal, the Crashgate controversy heated up the entire F1 world. Renault was the team involved in this scenario, as its team management deliberately ordered one of their cars to crash during the 2008 Singapore Grand Prix, with the intention of creating a strategic advantage for other Renault cars. After the investigations, it was found that the Crashgate controversy was entirely masterminded by Renault's managing director, Flavio Briatore, as well as executive director of engineering, Pat Simmons. They gave the instructions for Nelson Piquet Jr. to crash his car at a certain moment of the race to create an advantage for Fernando Alonso over his rivals. Even though it was not a secret that Renault intentionally did this, there was not enough evidence to open a case. When Nelson Piquet Jr. was dropped from the 2009 Renault driver lineup, he raised his voice on the scandal. Based on his confession, the FIA opened a case against Renault management. Briatore and Simmons were found to be guilty of creating this unethical scenario, which harmed the sportsmanship of the game. A lifetime ban was imposed on Briatore, and a 5-year ban was handed over to Simmons. The loss of service from these two top figures disturbed the team's dynamic in a bad way. Furthermore, some severe penalties were introduced to the regulations regarding any deliberate crash. The 2003 tyre-gate scandal. Even though we can see only one tyre supplier in the current championship, there were several tyre suppliers in the past, like the power unit suppliers. Back in 2003, the tyre-gate scandal occurred, as many teams were unhappy about the way that regulations related to tyres were interpreted, creating an additional advantage for Ferrari. At that time, Michelin and Bridgestone were the tyre suppliers in Formula One. According to regulations, there was a specific tyre width that should be maintained before a race, but was not applied during or after the race. By making maximum use of this point, Michelin designed a tyre which gets wider with usage. Wider tyres gave opportunities for teams like Ferrari to perform well compared to their rivals. Bridgestone and their customer teams noticed this suspicious design technique employed by Michelin and requested an investigation from the governing body. In addition, they demanded a tyre inspection process after the race and also restrictions on tyre size even after the race. After an investigation, the Formula One governing body ordered Michelin to readjust their tyres before the race in Monza, in a way that they don't get wider during the race. Consequently, the press conference of the 2003 Italian GP became quite heated, as Ferrari's Ross Brown came forward to defend their tyre supplier Michelin. However, they were heavily criticised by McLaren's Ron Dennis and Williams' Patrick Head, as Michelin used the same tyre designing technique over the last 2 decades, creating an advantage for their customer. This became a reason behind Formula One's shift towards one tyre supplier, creating the same racing conditions for a fair game. 1994 cheating scandal of Benetton. The Benetton team, which won the 1994 and 1995 Drivers' Championships, were accused by their rivals of the use of illegal software to enhance their performance during the 1994 season. So the FIA ended up launching an investigation against Benetton and asked them to provide the source code which they used to enhance the traction control of the car. Later, teams like Ferrari and McLaren were also placed under investigation. However, Ferrari was the only team to provide their source code before the deadline, and the other two were fined $100,000 by the governing body. After investigations, the FIA found some suspicious components in their source code, but there was no clear evidence to prove its usage during a race. Benetton also accepted the existence of such a code, but they explained that it was not something that could be activated by the driver during the race. As there was no clear evidence, the FIA decided to release Benetton from all the charges. But most of the rivals were not happy, stating that Benetton were cheating throughout the season. However, this cheating scandal led to a positive development within the sport, as the FIA approved the use of traction control, launch control, and automatic transmissions in 2001. Schumacher's deliberate crashes in 1994 and 1997. While Michael Schumacher is considered one of the greatest Formula One drivers to ever compete in the championship, his early career was full of controversial scenarios. Back in 1994, which was his first title-winning campaign, both Schumacher and Damon Hill had the opportunity to become the champion depending on the result of the season finale in Adelaide, Australia. Schumacher was leading the standings by just 1 point, and he knew that if both failed to complete this race, he was going to be crowned the champion by default. During the 36th lap of the race, Schumacher was in first, and his rival Damon Hill was in second. Schumacher lost control of his car at the East Terrace corner and collided with a safety wall. However, he returned back to the track and made intentional contact with Hill to end his race as well. However, Hill returned to the pits for a quick repair, but his Williams mechanics decided that damages were too serious to repair. That was the end of the race for both Schumacher and Hill. This scenario resulted in crowning the Benetton driver as the champion. This was a clear robbery, but the Formula One governing body didn't take any action against this. Schumacher then repeated the same move against his rival Jacques Villeneuve at Jerez during the 1997 campaign. But this time, the FIA decided it was an intentional move and disqualified the German driver from the championship. These two scenarios led to the development of a number of safety measures, and the FIA no longer accept any deliberate crashes and impose heavy sanctions. The 2021 Abu Dhabi controversy. The 2021 season was a very tense one, as Verstappen and Hamilton had a very close fight for the driver's title. When these two drivers were heading to the season finale race in Abu Dhabi, they were tied in the points table. Since the beginning of the race, Hamilton was in the lead, and he had the chance to close the 2021 season with his 8th driver's title. However, Nicholas Latifi's crash in the latter part of the race forced a safety car restart. Under the safety car, Verstappen was allowed to overtake the lap cars, helping him to close down with Hamilton. When the race resumed, Verstappen performed a quick launch and was able to overtake Hamilton within the last few minutes of the race. This was a controversial scenario, and Mercedes were unhappy about the decisions that were taken by the race director, Michael Schumacher, during the most critical moment of the race. After the investigation, the FIA acknowledged the accident as a human error, but didn't show any flexibility to change the race results. So Hamilton lost the opportunity to win the record-breaking 8th title. Anyhow, race director Michael Schumacher had to resign from his position. Later, the FIA revised the regulations related to safety car deployment and stated that from here on it would be mandatory for all lapped cars to unlap themselves before a restart, preventing a repeat of the Abu Dhabi situation in any of the future races. These were some major scandals that happened in Formula One history, which required some serious intervention from the FIA to solve. Even though these controversial moments created some unpleasant memories in history, all these scandals were crucial in changing the regulations, technology, and safety aspects to make the sport a fair and safer one. That concludes the video. Show us some love by hitting the subscribe button and bell icon. See you in the next video.